Oh, so good to be back. This is the Audio Mullet. I am Michael J. Nelson. With me, Ethan Nicolle and Doug TenNapel. Guys, how are you?
Oh, I've never been better. Never
great.
been happier.
Oh, yeah.
Ethan, your great sounded a little, I'm not sure.
I am great.
Like he's throwing the rope over the raft.
Exactly.
Great, guys. It's about to get a lot better as soon as I throw this rope.
Yeah, super great, guys. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Anyway, this is the show where we talk about unfashionable things because we are all unfashionable guys. I'd venture to say that we're all pre-modern people. We believe things.
That means our minds are set to even less fashionable than anyone you know.
Right.
Like they might be modernist. And there's postmodern after that and postmodern. We're pre-modern. We're like 4 generations back.
Yeah, I met
a clock back.
Yes, I met a guy once in my church who was like 1,000 years old, and I had him over to dinner, and he said, "Mike," in a trembly voice, like, "I grew up before, like my brothers were much older than I was, and they all had the mindset before World War I. So I was on a farm, and I know nothing about the modern world."
Yeah. He goes, I'm pre-Byzantine.
Yeah, his mindset was so far back, and I loved that guy. And he was like the happiest dude. He was just like, I don't understand anything anymore.
Yeah.
And he functioned just fine. So we 3 don't understand anything anymore, but we understand old things. And so that's what we talk about on this. And we have a huge topic today, but then we also have stories our dads told us coming up later. But Doug, introduce the main topic and let's get into it.
Sure. Assuming that I know the main topic, let me think.
I think you
trying
do.
to remember from 5 seconds back.
I could.
Ethan, jump in for God's sake.
Ethan, save me.
So we know that there's going to be listeners who may have got on here and they're like, "Oh, cool, let's hear about Mystery Science Theater and Earthworm Jim and Axe Cop," and then suddenly we're talking about masculinity and Christianity and conservatism and stuff that probably horrifies a certain amount of people that have got on here. So,
in case you thought this show was about how much we love Hostel and the Saw series, our box set of Saw, we're actually conservative Christians with values from pre-modernity.
Yes,
and we really like talking about that stuff, and you probably don't get why we do or what the heck. So I wanted this episode to kind of just be like what we'd like to tell that person who's horrified by that or and you know, there's going to be certain ones that just the moment they hear they're gone, they're never going to listen again. But I think that there might be some who, you know, since they can't shout back right now, maybe we could just give them our point of view on that and how they'd like us to, you know, how we'd like them to see us or perceive or listen or whatever.
Yeah, I think that is very valuable because, you know, believe it or not, all 3 of us go about in the world having really, really great relationships with tons of people. We do not cause harm in the world as far as I know. I go to church, I drive here, I do this, I write, I do that, I make people laugh. So I'm not a harmful person, but my beliefs apparently probably are going to be. I don't know what to do about that. So who wants to start? Doug, you want to take the charge?
Yeah, my first instinct is to say screw you, but I'll not go there just now. I will say that this kind of falls under the screw you category. It is that you have been programmed by culture to think certain things about Christians that may very well not be true. It's no different than like someone who's raised to think like, oh, all people of that race are lazy or bad drivers or chintzy or whatever, and we've all been culturally programmed to see the truth that many of those are lies, right? Mostly lies.
Yeah.
And so I'm only saying, if you think about us in that category for a second, that you might be very wrong about the kinds of things that you've heard about Christianity from idiots like Bill Maher. So let's say, like, if your first thought is these three guys believe in faith over facts, or these three guys haven't read widely on science, economics, or are very creative in entertainment. There's all these things that you'll hear that we're anti-science or whatever. You'll hear these things about us, and I'm just saying, give us a second chance, because I think we can make a good case against all of those categories. And then you're left there with your pants down saying, how in the hell did I believe this garbage fed to me about these reasonable guys who barely killed any puppies?
Yeah, I think that that's a good start. That the whole anti-science thing is baffling, utterly baffling. And if you look at your history of science, and I'm not going to go through it, and this is not I don't have a lot of knowledge in it, but you will learn quickly that it was pretty much all Christians who, in the Western world, who were interested in science because they were interested in exploring. So that one is like,
including today in microbiology and cracking the human genome, and going into space, and archaeology. It's Christians all throughout these fields, and there's no conflict with science.
Right.
So it's like that's a bugaboo.
But go a little more personally for you. What do you have you ever run into trouble with your Christian beliefs? With how does it butt up against your actual living life with people who are non-Christians? Because most of us now, in the old days, we all would have been. When I was young, probably everyone I bumped into on the street, and you go, "Hey, how are you? Are you a Christian?" They'd go, "Well, sure." Now, I doubt that anyone I ever am in a room with doing anything or talking to is a Christian unless I arrange it myself. Would that be fairly accurate?
Yeah, that's fairly accurate, because we tangle a lot in, it might be urban centers, but also within entertainment. I was a college professor, so within academia, entertainment, where in general you're not going to stumble across a Christian casually.
No, I don't think so ever. So how does that work in your world, Doug? And you have been on the front lines, I know, sometimes famously. How does it work for you, and what do you bring to it, and how do you react to the non-Christian world, which you always interact with?
For me, and this is probably a lot of confirmation bias, I feel like all of the hatred only goes one way. Like, I have to hear people say the most degrading, outrageous things about my values and beliefs. And if I casually said the same things about them, I think they'd be really clear on how ignorant it sounds and how unfair it sounds. So, for instance, I had in Glendale, I had a gay married couple across the street who were wonderful guys. They threw outrageous parties. I'd go over there. Everyone would hang out. We were doing karaoke. They all found out I was a Christian, and it was like I took a crap in the room. They'd be like, "Holy cow, like, what are you doing here? And how can you," or they assume that I didn't really believe my beliefs. They'd go, "Oh, you're one of the kind that don't believe that Jesus is the only way." Like, they're trying to give you an out. And I go, no, I do believe Jesus is the only way. Well, you're not the kind to believe that, hell is eternal for people who don't believe in your religion. I go, no, I do believe hell is one of those. And then they were just baffled that I was so loving to them, because I'm always a fan of I always interview other people, especially people who are different from me. "Oh, how'd you come to that? Where did that come from? Tell me how you got there. Tell me what it's like." And they just assumed that I was not a Christian because I was kind, which I think is a terrible thing to say about Christians or think about Christians. So I would just, my job when I'm in those situations, it is actually not to get in arguments. I became an argumentative asshole in response to getting so much flack and hearing so much just rudeness being thrown out around about Christianity, that I'll go out and kind of lay it down really blunt, because they already believe the worst thing about me. So now I'm just I kind of lost my fear of what people think of me, because they already thought the worst about me. So I thought it can only get better if I am just really blunt about my faith and my values. But my number one job is to absolutely love these people. And I'm not sitting here white knuckled, holding my nose. I can't believe I have to tolerate these people who are different from me. It's not like that. It is, I genuinely am really fascinated by other people. I really love them. I really see the imprint of, we believe that all people are made in the image of God, that I'm always trying to shake out what is true, good, and beautiful about this person, what is amazing that is crafted about them, and the most boring, bland, mean, terrible person I've ever met is more fascinating to me than the most, let's say, loyal dog or most amazing work of art. You know, Michelangelo's David, 18 foot tall, carved out of marble. It holds nothing to the most, mundane person you've ever met, are a miracle to me.
Yeah, I find that too, that as I've gotten older, especially, that I just want to hear the people's stories. And I think that would be another thing that would amaze. Like, I'm a pretty kind person. I'm not very talented at talking to people, but I love it. And so when I'm on a plane or something, if someone talks to me, I am always fascinated with them and want to hear what their thing is. Because if anyone's passionate about anything, it's like, eventually maybe it'll get around to our religion and that can happen. But otherwise, yeah, just another human being. And I think that would surprise people, that we don't sit around going, oh my God, is this person is this person's values, do they line up with mine? Because if not, I'm ready to spring.
Yeah.
Like,
the
this
projection of judgment is furious to me. The idea that they project on me this super unfair, a terrible judgment, which in and of itself is a judgment. It is an incredibly unnuanced, uncurious form of judgment that they project on you as soon as you walk in the room and say, I'm an evangelical.
Yeah.
So who's the judgy person here? Whereas if they tell me they're Muslim, I may in my values say, well, you're a denier of the one true Christ. But I'll also kind of say, oh, what kind of Muslim are you? Tell me about that. How'd you come to that? I don't hear many people say that about evangelicals. They act like they already know everything they need to know about you just by one word. And that's a very thin thing to do to someone.
Yeah. Ethan, your statement on this.
I think that's the thing, is like, there's this cartoon version of what a Christian is and what a conservative is, and it's like, I don't know how to get out from under that. Like, I'm fascinated by people and how they think, and like everything you guys have said. I mean, there's nothing I love more than when I get to hear people, or even get to be involved in the conversation of people who have completely different viewpoints and beliefs, and where they're talking through it, but in a way where everybody's acknowledging the other person's humanity, and like, we're all people, and there's things that like can't be proven, but maybe by science, but like that, those are the funnest things to wrestle with. And I wish more people are open to that, rather than trying to close themselves off from any, the idea that there's somebody out there who's not worth having a discussion with because they're so awful. And maybe there's some of those people out there, but I don't know. I think it's best to fall on the right side of, like, be willing to give a person the benefit of the doubt. They're a human. They went down a certain path. They got where they are. That's the main thing, I think.
Yeah. And the people that fascinate me the most are the ones who are people very different from my values. So an atheist or a practicing homosexual, the ones that fascinate me are the ones that come at me with real curiosity and open-minded questions of like, wow, tell me what kind of Christian you are or whatever, which is what I offer them, the same kind of curiosity. When they're that way with me, I always know I'm dealing with a very different kind of person than the ones who just go like straight Bill Maher at you. I'm always fascinated by those people, like going, wow, you're like a,
But even like you keep crapping on Bill Maher, but one thing I appreciate about Bill Maher is he's very pro free speech, and he has people on who most people would like never want to give. They're always saying, don't give a platform to that guy. He loves Ann Coulter. That's bold of him to say that. And so that's one thing I appreciate about him, is that. And I like that spirit of free speech. Let us all this. I mean, the thing is, if we're not talking, things are going to get physical. It's like when people
I just want to put Bill Maher back
this
on the
hard.
hook. Hold on, I got to put Bill Maher back on the hook because when he asks his questions, I never feel like he's curious about the answer. They're very accusatory.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I think he does think he knows everything already.
I don't think his mind would ever be turned by anything that fell out of Ann Coulter's mouth.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I agree.
That's my beef. It's not a search for knowledge.
But I think Ann Coulter's she's mainly there for people who already agree with her. I don't think there's some people who are like, oh, I've been converted by Ann Coulter.
I would say about Ann Coulter, I've defended her before because her columns, I think she does a bunch of one-liners. And
she's funny as heck.
She's funny. And I think that people, I don't like that idea that, there's this, the popular idea of her is, she's a horrible witch, and she said that Muslims should be killed and converted to Christianity. It's like, look, the people on the left, jokers, have made way worse jokes than that. That was a joke. And so to not forgive that, I just don't like that thing on the left, to not forgive jokesters. She's a joker. She's a provocateur. You have hundreds of them on the left. She's the one on the right, and you call her the white witch and everything. Like, she's a pretty reasonable person. I don't think she's trying to make gags, and mostly if you read her writing, it's funny, and some of it's insightful, and a lot of it's wrong, like all of us. I don't find her to be an evil person at all.
And bomb throwers on the right, this is in my defense, we were created by your culture. Like, your culture is the one that gave us permission to speak our mind with not many manners, and even to deliberately go against culture and put a stick in it. When comedy became like, hey, we're here to tear down power centers, centers of power, and question them and expose the emperors naked. Well, when the entire culture goes liberal, which is where we live in academia and entertainment, that is the emperor. And so I'm here to show where the emperor is naked. And you just go in and very bluntly say, what's what we love about that child and his innocence. You point at him, you go, this is where you're naked. And then they get all offended. And you go like, now you're the prude. I thought we were having,
I thought we were all doing the thing where we tear down.
I thought we were all doing the thing.
I
thought we were all George Carlin. Now, your beloved George Carlin,
I actually thought this, and this will be controversial, the latest Louis C.K. Leaked thing, I found it funny. I'm sorry. The one specific thing, because there was a short clip leaked, and he said that back in my day, we were like doing acid and calling our, and driving around and like, blowing up boats in the water and, doing crazy stuff. And then, our mom was like, you guys are nuts. You're like doing acid and you're taking drugs and you're terrible. And they're like, what do you know, man? And then, the joke was just that now it's the young kids going like, you can't say that. And his joke was simply like, why don't you just go do drugs or something? What are you lecturing me about how to be an adult? And I thought, and everyone's like, so hacky, so terrible. He should be shunned. I'm like, that's not hacky. That's actually a good premise. Like, that kids now are our parents, and they're yelling at us for doing, just being free and everything. That's a good premise. Whether or not he pulled it off, I don't know. But anyway, I just don't disagree with the idea that what are the kids telling us how to behave? I think that's a good premise.
The kids are the prudes, and they're always reminding you, going like, You'll be on the wrong side of history, and I can't wait for your generation to die out so we can have all these freedoms. I'm just like, ugh. They're like the old man curmudgeon going, the kids these days. They're going around going, the parents these days, huh? Am I right?
Right. I used to laugh with one of our fellow, I won't name him because one of our fellow Chestertonians was that...
Tom Hanks.
Yes, exactly. I broke a folding chair over his back.
Yeah, it was that or Bill Cosby. I can't remember.
Oh, Bill Cosby. Let's take a moment. What a great guy. Sorry, this show does not endorse Bill Cosby.
Much.
Oh, now you got me off track. What was I talking about?
I win.
Chestertonian of ours or something.
A secret Chestertonian friend of ours. Yeah.
You guys, you threw me so off track. I don't even remember. I remember who I was going to talk about. Oh no, it was this that on the time when we're all herded into the re-education camps, which I'm sure are coming. It will be very friendly people. That will be the only difference. They'll all be younger than us, and they'll be very nice, and they'll be like dudes, with little knitted caps, and their facial hair will be really sweet. But they'll be like, "Hey, man, if you could just do me a favor, that'd be sweet. If you could just step into that line right there." And
the one that goes into the meat grinder.
Yeah, that's where
the human sausage.
That's where the spinning knives come out. Sweet, dude. No, it's no problem, man. No worries. Just get in there when you can. That's going to be the end of us, because we're
going to give you this big pallet of money, and then we're just going to take your children. Cool. It's like, we think this is a fair solution.
This is, dude, no, man. No, I know what you're thinking. Do not worry about it, man. Just go into that line. It's line A. You're good. That's
good.
How
Hey, Mike, I've always thought you were really funny.
Yeah.
That one Mystery Science movie. I am the biggest. Can you sign this for me? I know you're in line. Here's a pen. I know that we've forbidden you guys from any writing implements ever again. But can you just sign this for me, bro, real quick?
My grandpa was your biggest fan, man. I remember that.
Yeah, he's in the line too behind you.
No, so my statement to people, because I think it is a good question about like how can you believe what you believe, is again just to make a statement like I have, and I always think this about you, Doug, and about you, Ethan. I know you guys, and I know a lot of people that know you. It's how could you have a bunch of friends and live this good life? I always say, like, have I not built up any moral, bank account where there are so many people who I think, I don't know, I hope this doesn't sound aggrandizing, who would go, no, Mike was always nice to me when this,
Yeah.
He raised two good children. Like, I don't know what to say to charges that I'm an evil person because of my beliefs when the evidence in front of your eyes tells you the opposite. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how.
But now we're at a point where you judge people as good or evil based on what they believe. We're told by culture, that's how you're to align people, is that person has these values and therefore they're harming the whole world. That's both sides. Therefore they're to be dismissed. And the actual evidence of what they do with their life is, we used to judge people based on what they do. It's like, well, that guy, because, he either mowed your lawn right or not, or he did your taxes right or not, or he was a square friend or not. And now it's like, it doesn't matter how good of a guy you are, you will divorce yourself from him because of his belief.
This is a very, very bad trend. I don't, this is civil war. I mean, obviously we all know the signs of it, but it's funny. I was at, there's a guy at church whose name I won't bring up, who he came to my house. He's come to my house many times. He's a good friend. We read Chesterton together. And I remember he said once to me, he goes, "Oh, that's right. You're kind of a little on the right, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I think so." And he said, "Yeah, well, I'm totally on the left." I was like, "Yeah, I think I knew that." He's like, that was it.
Yeah.
It's like, I remember that you were, and that he was just doing it as a term of curiosity. Like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Huh. We should talk sometime. I'm like, yeah, let's have coffee.
Yeah.
Like that. I don't know what else to say than a guy on the left and me are totally fine. And I mean, I think he's really on the left, but I'm with this guy all the time. I have no problems. Yeah. So I don't know what to say beyond that. Like, do people who live on the internet and insult other people, are they with people they disagree with all the time, constantly doing things like doing tasks for others, like moving? And I'm not, this is not a humble brag or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, I've done charity work with this guy together. We function together as everyone did before, 20 years ago. That's what I'm saying. Like, everyone did this. Everyone understood this. And now when you fight on the internet, you think that person is a person who should be killed or a non-human. This is very bad.
I think because Ethan, you're in the arts and you've been in music and you were from Oregon, that weren't you always exposed to people who believe different than you or were very different kinds of people?
Yeah, I mean, I came out of a small town, so I think more people, though, I mean, most of my old friends from that town turned out to be pretty liberal, but I think that there was a vilifying of that culture in the small town that I kind of started to resent, especially once I moved to Portland and saw that they had their own, I don't know, like their own flaws as far as their culture that they were so high and mighty about. But I was always surrounded by it. And I think that's the thing. And I think that one thing that I would want to say is the huge division in America, like it does trace back to around the Clinton years, I believe. Like things have like really like started to get bad, and I think that a lot of that I think links to media and the way that news changed, especially when the Monica Lewinsky scandal happened. Like news became a 24-hour cycle about
the birth of CNN,
who's
and
awful
Fox
and who's good.
and
Like
TV.
it all came out of that, and I think it's all an extension. And I do honestly believe I don't see this division in real life when I talk to real people. It's on the internet, especially on Twitter. And I ask you if you're one of those people that believes it's really there and all these people are really evil and horrible, like just try to set that noise aside and just look at every person as a human and be interested in how they got to where they are and why they think how they do. Like just start off with that. And I think there's just all this noise that's going on that so many people have so much to benefit by that division. Media, news, even Twitter, any of those social media websites, they thrive on, if there's a giant thread of people coming back, they can post ads there. So all the conflict, it benefits a huge amount of people. And we have to like be the kind of people that set that stuff aside in our head and go like, that's all there to draw us in.
Rebel from your culture.
Yeah,
Rebel.
I'm 100% convinced that the networks themselves have those, how dopamine comes and goes, right? Where you get that little shot of, obviously on Twitter and all that, they know that. They study the rhythms and the patterns of how people react. And that is, what most of our people staring at phones are worried about is when am I going to get my next dopamine hit when, 7 people like my photo of me eating pizza or whatever, which is absurd. But on the political level, obviously they know that too in the way that they shape the news. So if you're sitting there with the TV on, I do not, if I ever have a TV on in my house, that news thing and that pattern of now we're going to say something, we're going to give you a little red meat. Now we're going to go into we're going to yell at each other and now you're angry and now we're going back, and there's a little dopamine for you. We agree with you, and you agree with us. I find that so revolting. Like, I do not want to be, and I know it's so insulting to say, like, that you're, something of a cattle. It's so awful, and I don't mean it. But what I'm saying is they know. They have that all figured out. It's like the sweet spot of Taco Bell. They know the crunch and the this and the that. And it's not insulting to know that, but that's what, to me, TV news is like Taco Bell, crunch.
Right,
sweet,
and it's easy. It is like fast food thinking, like to turn a person into just kind of an easy, tidy little package of awful stuff, and to not see anything beyond that, to kind of oversimplify them. That was one thing that happened to me. Is actually around the Trump presidency when I started to realize that I was really like. I had created a lot of opinions about a lot of people, and I only knew them from the hyped media version of them. And I started trying to like see people that I like hated on paper, comedians, anybody. I would try to give them like I listened to a full like hour interview or talk with them, and listen to them talk about things I actually agreed with. Like it was fascinating for me to like try to seek out people I thought I couldn't stand and. There's still things about him I couldn't stand, but I just made them more human in my head. Bill Maher was one of them. I thought I completely hated him, and there's aspects of him that I like when I started to listen to. I think that with all these people, there's something that makes your blood boil. Like, try to listen to like a podcast where they're on for like an hour or two, and like hear like hear them talk about like their childhood or something. I don't know. I think it's a good exercise to.
Yeah.
to get to know somebody beyond the sound bites that go viral, because that's the thing that most
if I was
people are
sitting
known
down
by.
with Bill Maher, who I hate, if I was sitting down with Bill Maher and we had a beer and he was telling me about his childhood, I'd have a blast. It's
Totally.
if he rolled out that shtick for an hour, I wouldn't change my opinion of him. But I wouldn't be giving him my shtick. I don't do that when I have a beer with a guy. I don't talk like I'm on Twitter throwing down hot takes on politics. I sit there and I hang with him and say,
That's
hey.
the weird thing about Twitter. Everybody's talking so everybody else can hear them.
Yeah.
Or read them.
Let me throw down a good one to see how and measure the clicks so I can boost up my self-image.
By the way, I could have to leave at any moment here, just so you guys know.
Yeah,
Okay.
This is the sausage being made, people. Ethan is in a room by himself. That
A
could be,
rented office.
yeah, that could be taken over. Now, this, I think, is an exciting thing. What could happen with our podcast? Because who knows who will come through that door? Could it be?
It could be like a little group of real estate people barging in here to make a deal on a house or something.
Yeah, but let's think larger. Could it be Bill Maher? Could he
Could
be
be.
coming?
Bill Maher comes in.
Never
Yeah,
know.
he's gonna work on a new pilot.
It
And
hurt
we'll go,
us.
hey.
Yeah.
And you go, we were just talking about you with a guy that really hates you.
And then the end of this podcast would be the greatest moment of ever, the healing between Doug and
Yeah.
Bill Maher. It would
Bill
be the
Maher.
Ethan, hand
greatest.
him the headphones. I want to ask him, Bill, tell me about your childhood. Tell me about your childhood.
And then it's like
He'd
another.
go, well, the evangelicals who crap on everyone were there, judging me and throwing me in this Handmaid's Tale dress.
He wouldn't be able to
Like-
stop
like all
talking
of
about
you
Trump.
do.
You couldn't get him off it.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll continue until Ethan gets kicked out of the room, and then we'll go beyond there. But I actually think that I've had so many conversations with people about politics who are scared that I got off of Twitter and are like, why did you disengage? And I say the thing that I say to everyone, because it made me sad. I didn't want to see my friends be so outraged and so head exploding. Like, I know them as people and a lot of people that I work with. And then when I see the things that they do, it depressed me. And I said, I don't want to see this anymore. I don't want to look.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to see, my uncle undress in the shower. I love my uncle. He's a great guy, but I don't want to see his wang. And that's what I feel about Twitter is like my uncle showing his wang. I don't want to see. We all have opinions. We all have a wang. Yeah. We don't hang out our gross wang and show our nephews. That's my.
Ethan, I wonder if we kind of talk about like how you'll see people who you hate. They're presented in this one cardboard cutout, and then you want to do a deep dive on them. I wonder if just the sheer number of people that we're keeping track of, like if I glance over Twitter and I'm following all the Rifftrax guys and Bill Maher and Jonah Goldberg and 1,000 friends who I don't know, I've never met them in person. They're just a number, and I just see their words. I wonder if the human mind just can't process the depth of all these people at once, so we naturally compartmentalize them into those cardboard slots, just because we weren't meant to be scanning. I have 14,000 followers. I'm not supposed to be scanning 14,000 people's feeds.
And plus, the main things you're seeing from them in that environment are their most controversial things that are getting the most retweets and stuff. So
it doesn't stick
not
out if it's a normal word.
Person is
it doesn't stick out to my mind if they just say something normal. It's if they say I just now I pooped a giant lemon. That sticks out. So you'll remember that for days.
Who tweeted that? Because I'd like to up like that or whatever, or thumbs up it.
Kevin Murphy, I believe.
Oh, okay.
with a photo. It's terrible.
Stop.
You're off Twitter. You wouldn't know, so go ask him about it.
You'd claim that, I'm sure.
I'm going to make a controversial statement. My wife and I have this theory, because this is going even back farther. I think TV is the most destructive force in the history of mankind. Your thoughts?
Probably true.
Yeah, I think it is just it's a nascent version of the internet. The internet actually does more damage because TV is passive, and you used to be able to only watch like one channel or 4 channels at a time, And even when you were watching, say, 2 hours or 4 hours a day of that, the amount of time we spend on screens now is multiplied times 2, and it's interactive. So it's actually involving, it's overtaking even more of your mind. And we're looking for ways to saturate ourselves further into it with virtual reality or whatever. I don't even know how you could do it, saturate it anymore. Google Glass, where you literally walk around looking through a screen at the world with little pop-up things coming at you to say what to do, think, and buy.
Or walking around with headphones on, listening to audio Mullet. I mean,
yeah, we're repair work. The mullet, guys, is the way out. You wear a mullet, and it'll start to it'll push you out of those cocktail parties.
I once did I think I tweeted about, what if you just, as an experiment, grew a toothbrush mustache, the Hitler mustache, right?
Yeah,
and just lived with it for a year, and just does anyone still recognize that image? But anyway, you'd be taking yourself out of polite society for a whole year, obviously.
But when you say that you voted for Trump, you might as well be wearing that little mustache. That's how they see you.
Yeah, it's the same thing. But this would just be a visual representation of it. And so I just tweeted that and thought, but you're a great guy in all other ways. Another idea is like you open a great restaurant and you serve the best food, and it's actually very reasonably priced, but you call it "We Spit in Your Food." People would, what do you do? And so I got a tweet back from a guy in England who did it for real. He was a comedian. He grew a toothbrush mustache and walked around looking like Hitler for a year, just as a comedian thing. And I thought, well, that's fascinating. And he's like, someday I'll tell you what.
And he was a rabbi, which is weird.
Yes, this is a very strange turn for him. But just to be out of culture, there's something freeing about it. And since I have gotten off of Twitter, I tell everyone, if you want to be 30% happier, just turn it all off and
take the pill.
Like, you're insane. I'm like, no, 20, 30, 40, 50% happier. It depends on how plugged in you are to this. But trust me, I have not missed it. I don't rely on it for anything, and everyone's always like got an excuse, like, well, I'm starting this or I'm doing this, which is fine. It's fine, but yeah, unplug from the internet. You'll be happier.
Yeah, the beloved Miss TenNapel does not do Twitter or Facebook, or she's barely on it. If she is, she doesn't go and check it every day. And the only time she's watching a show is one of her favorite Netflix series from England about English people or something. And she's generally more happy and well balanced than most people I come across on the internet.
Yeah. What is their, just for curiosity, what is their English show? Because
like Father Brown, she did the Father Brown.
Oh, those are very good. Yeah.
And The Crown, or whatever it's called, the Queen one, whatever it is. I just see it on her screen when she's doing her little iPad binge watching shows.
People seem to think they need the TV and internet because it's informing them, like it's giving them all this information. They think they don't want to be like out of the loop. But I think it's like, if you think about the amount of things you can't actually know in this world at one moment, I think that the TV and internet, it actually gives you a false sense of knowing
of course
what's going on, but you really don't. Like you couldn't be more ignorant.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of ties into the Chestertonian idea of wonder, that like everything, it has so much more depth and complexity to it, that approaching this life with that sense of wonder is the most fulfilling and adventurous way to approach life. And there's a deadening of that comes from TV and internet and stuff like that, that we feel safe and informed, and we're just not. There's no way you're going to be that informed and safe, turning everybody into a cartoon character, turning all the issues into simple little arguments and memes. And so it makes sense to me that unplugging from all that and to approach us with that idea, like unplug from all your memes and your cartoon caricatures and your ideas, and that's all I ask for. Just see me as the wild, horrifying thing that is a human being.
Yeah, interesting how Chesterton, though, who was a journalist for his whole life and just pounded out articles, when he talked about transcendence and wisdom and the things that elevate the suffering of man, so many of his imagery is nature, the sunset, the leaves, the tree, mountains, and never like journalism, where he lived. He was never like transcendent journalism. Some examples would be, it was never that. St. Thomas Aquinas, getting out in nature,
Also on Chesterton, if you ever read his debate with
George Bernard Shaw.
Yeah, Shaw. Even just reading the opening lines from the two of them and the amount of brotherly love they have for each other, and they completely disagree on everything, but the gentlemanly bro friendship they have, these two guys love each other, that kind of I don't know, that jovial love for other men even though you don't agree. I think that's one thing that's very much lost. It's hard for me to imagine.
And nowhere in their dialogue with each other did it ever go to Orange Man or Pelosi, the Marxists. It was they did not repeat insults that they heard from other people about each other. They crafted everything themselves. So they had unique thoughts even in their criticisms of each other. And on the internet, I see everyone repeating the same meme. There's not creativity to it.
When I first saw a bunch of memes, like GIFs in a row, I call them GIFs. I don't care. I was
because we're back on peanut butter.
Yes, I was stunned though that wait, people just send the. I did not understand that. That why would you send out something that somebody else sent out? I don't. So you're not making a new joke. You're just sending. Yeah. Three frames of a movie and going oh no, girl. I actually was what is happening? I don't understand this.
Okay, for the next month, I am now only going to communicate to you through GIFs.
Oh, I can't wait.
All my emails are only going to be a string. That's how I'm going to communicate with you.
I can't wait.
Because I know how it's going to just reduce you to a puddle. That's my joy.
Hey, I just brought this up. I was looking at so Bridget sent me this morning. This is my wife, for those of you listening, talking about pride. Pride does not like the sovereignty of God. Therefore, pride does not like the existence of God because God is sovereign. It might express this by saying there is no God, or it might express it by saying, I'm driving to Atlanta for Christmas. And this from his point being you have no control over anything in your life. And so, there is no pride. You have nothing until you get to Atlanta. Anyway, I like that a lot.
So that's the humble pre-modern saying of if God wills it.
God
say
wills
we're going to go there for Christmas if God wills it.
Exactly, which is why it's so pre-modern.
God willing, yeah.
God willing, yeah. My grandma would say that all the time. God willing, we'll go to church this morning. God willing. Yeah. Anyway, all right. What is the status of the room? Please give us a room status update, Ethan.
Did Bill Maher walk outside? I didn't see anybody lining up out there or peeking in. So, I'm on the edge of my seat. I don't know what's going to happen.
All right. Well, let's take a slight break, and then we'll come back with our fresh new department, and then we'll end this thing. How's that sound?
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay, we're back. This is Audio Mullet. Michael J. Nelson, Doug TenNapel, Ethan Nicolle. How are you guys doing?
You sound like you're all alone.
I'm very lonely right now.
I'm Mike, alone in my bunker.
Please help me.
You're saying our names. You didn't sound sure if we were there.
There, send food, send citrus. Please, I have rickets.
No, please, no, anything. Just any sugar or anything that will give me sustenance. I'm living alone in this room with a microphone.
Yes. Send a Manhattan.
Oh, I'd love that.
With an umbrella on it.
No, there's no umbrellas in Manhattans. Damn you, that's your drink. That's
extra grenadine in my Manhattan.
There's no grenadine in a Manhattan. Look it up.
You just sprinkle a little handful of pubes in a Manhattan.
Oh,
Ethan,
Ethan, come on, man.
That's not outside the box. That's pooping in the box.
This is a sophisticated show. We were talking about Chesterton, and now
Crossed the line in a way that none of us have ever crossed.
Exactly.
Ever.
Have any of us ever said anything sassy like that, young man?
Sassy.
We're going to go 300 episodes without ever crossing that line.
I have never been called sassy a day in my life.
You have been sassy, and I should slap your cheek, young man. Anyway. So this is the second half of the show, and this is I think the first part was fun, but this is going to be more fun. Go ahead and introduce it. Doug.
We are going to tell, and I'm really unclear on this as usual because of the show notes problem I have, but we're going to tell great stories our dad told. That's the worst intro. We're going to tell great stories that our dads told.
Well, it's stories about our dads is what it says on the thing, but then Mike introduced it as stories our dads told at the beginning of the show. So it could be one or the other, but I was thinking we were just telling funny stories about our actual dads.
Well, this is
Mike,
great because
I did not goof this up, Mr. Study all the show notes. You're the one that sprinkled all the pubes on this one.
Well, listen, even if I did it, I will fully confess that I did. I screwed it up.
So which is, so I know what to, why don't you guys figure it out?
No, I just want to say that for what it's worth, you up-talking your introduction was the greatest. This is about our dad stories. It was a great reward. So even if
I was split between you guys trying to figure out which one I was going to go. So
that's
we're going to tell
why
stories our dads told or stories about our dads.
Ethan,
how about either?
Ethan.
Oh, that's so vague.
If your best story about your dad is a story that he told you, then that can be your story.
Exactly.
Story.
See, why are you guys so confused about
subjects? Let's carve out the stories our dads told.
I don't have a story my dad told.
The stories my dad told are not tellable on radio or any.
That's true.
kind.
Okay, so it's not that. It is stories about our dads.
Yes.
Showing your age.
Jeez, this was too hard. This is too hard. Although it was so
Be
great.
clear.
Stories our dads told? That was good.
Stories our dads? Okay, stories about our dads.
Yes. It's Doug.
Right.
Doug, since you so wonderfully introduced it, you tell us stories about your dad.
A story about my dad?
Yeah.
My dad's whole life is a giant, bizarre, insane story, but my favorite one, which he just came out for Christmas, and we bought a pack of cigarettes, and we were just drinking, going through whiskey and just sharing great. He's very warm and loving. Just 2 days ago, I think, he called, and he said the thing that like all sons want to hear. He was like almost teary-eyed and choking up, and he goes, Doug, I just want you to know that you really are a good dad, and you're doing your family, you're doing it right. Oh. Just sat, nice. Just to hear that, I go, Dad, that's all I need to hear.
Yeah.
So my favorite story of his is when he told me about working at the Rolling Pin Bakery. Was one of his early jobs in high school. He worked at this bakery in L.A. And one day he had a wheelbarrow full of the fruitcake mix as they were prepping the loaves for Christmas. And he turned a corner, and the wheelbarrow was too heavy, and it just spilled right in front of the owner. And my dad just thought, I'm in trouble. I'm fired. And the guy was, saying like, Ed, you idiot or whatever. And my dad's like looking at him like, what are we going to do? And he goes, grab a shovel. He shoveled all the fruitcake mix right off the floor and threw it in the vat and continued to make that that high-end meal that people bought and thought this place has the best sanitary practices.
Wow. That's awesome.
Great story. I laugh hysterically. I loved it.
That's so good. Ethan?
Yeah, I should get mine out of the way in case I get kicked out of here. So I always love telling stories from back when my dad was homeless, because right after my parents divorced, my dad lived in his van for a while. And so we started living with him in his van on weekends. We'd go visit him. And
so funny, he maintained childhood visits even though
he lived in his van. So we go live in
I'm not going to give up my fatherly duties with my children, but I'm going to live in a van.
I think my mom wanted a break. She said, get him out of here for a couple of days. So we go. So my kind of like I can't remember if this is the same weekend or not, but this just gives you an example of how horrified my mom was when we come home. We went. So we would we go camping, free camping though. He'd just find a spot that he could park and we could just start a fire and like, not a campground. But so one other time, my dad lived down by the docks. He was a fisherman, so he would like fish and live in his van and listen to Rush Limbaugh and listen to preachers and stuff all day. And one time, my brother's playing around on the edge of the dock, and the dock is very high up. Down below, the tide is out, but the sand is very hard and wet, and there's lots of broken seashells all over it. And my dad's talking to this old fisherman guy. He's like, Tom, your son's playing real close to the edge there. He's probably going to fall off. And my dad goes, oh, that way he'll learn. No, my dad used to always say, is that way he'll learn? He wouldn't tell us anything.
You're on your own, buddy.
Noah's gone. We're like, where's Noah? And we go look over the edge, and he's way down there, and he's pressed into the sand, like a big indent. And so we had to run all the way down the dock and all the way back down to the beach and get him. And he mostly just knocked the wind out of him. I don't know if I broke any limbs, but
how far of a drop was that?
Man, I want to say like 20 feet maybe.
Holy moly!
Good
far,
Lord.
That's
bad.
Wow.
But then and it might have just seemed like that because I was like 8, so maybe it was not that as far as I think.
Eight. So fathering tips on audio mullet today.
But the other funny one that he did is we were on a camping trip with him, and he actually chopped his hand with an axe, and it was chopping fire, like full on blood everywhere. And then my brother fell over, and his hand got impaled on a rusty nail that was sticking out of a pile of wood.
He was crucified
in the middle of the campsite, and my dad just duct taped newspaper all over it and left it at that. And we got home from this trip, and he goes, "Oh yeah, Noah's hand got impaled on a rusty nail, and he had this like old bloody newspaper duct taped all over his hand."
I think that's
more dad tips, fathering tips on audio mullet.
Tips.
Keep the newspaper and duct tape handy.
Wow. Oh, that is good. He sounds like my dad. My dad was pretty. So here's my story for my.
Okay.
This is a good dad story, right? So my dad was pretty hardcore. He grew up with his dad was the town drunk. So I met my grandpa one day when we were driving to get donuts, and it was like 8 a.m, and we were going to the donut store. And my dad goes, "You see that old bum?" And he was getting thrown out of the bar. Like the door opened and this like old rummy gets tossed out. And I go, "Yeah." I'm like in the back of our station wagon. He goes, "You see that old rummy?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." That's your grandpa. Oh, man. Oh.
And that's your only memory of Grandpa.
That was my only memory of Grandpa. I saw him around again because he was like the town drunk. And so my dad, then his mom left the family, which was rare back then.
Yeah.
So his dad was the town drunk and the mom left. And so he was raised by his aunts. So I grew up, his people were ants, like, I don't know. They were these ancient women that I would go and the clock would tick and you'd sit and like, "Well, how are you?"
They were ant paws.
Yeah, it was very weird. But so here's a good dad story. He was a fireman, right? So he was a rescue team. And once the Fox River had a dam that was like one of these sliding dams, and people would go and swim on it, and then they would get caught under the thing, and they would drown under these things. And so my dad would go rescue them, and I remember the most manly thing. He's like, somebody died under the dam, and he got home and he's like, let's have dinner. Well, like, and my mom said, what happened? Yeah, we found the body. I kicked it up.
I kicked it up. I guess I better wash my hands.
Yes. Because he was on a rope. They would put a rescue person on this rope and send them across. And my dad was one of those, and he was on this rope. And then it's like, yeah, he was dead. And, it was just toughness in a way that he was not happy about it. Obviously, he was sad, but like, I got to get up in the morning and do it again. I don't really.
Yeah.
So I just remember that sitting at the table, going like, eating my little pudding, going.
Tell me about the dead guy. That's what I like about the old school manliness is, Dad never was. He was not posturing and trying to do manly things when he chopped his finger off.
Right.
Tip his finger off on a drill press or whatever. That was just normal life. They were living their. I have to like fake it. Like everything has to be like iron-willed. Keep from living this soft life as a discipline to be 1% of his manhood.
Right. Yeah.
They just woke up and they were, they didn't have running water or whatever. They had to like be in the backyard.
Did I tell this one about my dad when he chopped his finger off? Was that one of my stories?
Hey, we all had. My dad he's still missing the tip of his finger. So all of our dads have had massive hand injury.
Yeah.
Okay, tell your dad's chopped his finger off one.
No, well, it just got chopped off by a pipe while he was. But I just remember I came home from school and he was like sitting. He was home when I came home from school, which is like to anyone in the old days, it's like, what? Dad doesn't come home until what's going on? He was sitting at a table with a giant cartoon thing, on his finger, and he had chopped it off. He had gotten it caught in a pipe or something like that. And I looked at him and laughed. I'm like, what is that? And he goes, I had chopped my finger off. And I just didn't believe it. And I ran upstairs and threw my books on the floor or whatever. And then I heard this story. So he went to, so a pipe snapped above. He was a guy who was like a pipe fitter. And you take a crane and you put the pipes above it. Because like city type, huge. Yeah. Huge pipes. And there was a pipe on a crane and the crane snapped. And he heard the sound of the snap, and he pulled his finger out, and it's like his whole arms were inside of it. But he just pulled it out, but then his finger got chopped off, right, on the way out. And so he went into old Doc McDonald, our family doctor who birthed all of us.
Bite this stick, Mr. Nelson.
Dr. McDonald.
I'm imagining Norm McDonald.
Actually kneeled on. He kneeled on. I'm gonna take your finger out now.
That stick, that finger there was looking pretty bad. Huh?
Unless you're a crack whore. Yeah. So he kneeled on his forearm and took out a pruning shears and just started chipping off the. And my dad said, it wasn't that bad until the pieces of my own bone were hitting me in the eye. That's what And so then he put a big bandage on it and sent me home. And then my son, came home and laughed at me. That was basically, I didn't laugh at him. I was just like, I thought he was kidding. He was like, I chopped my finger off. It happens. And I was like,
and that was the birth of you as a comedian, to go on stage and laugh at other people's misery for a living.
Apparently.
The roast master Mike.
It was training.
Take that, Dad.
Yeah.
Who was a Marine. Got his finger chopped off.
Filmmakers just eking out their film, which is the equivalent to getting their finger chopped off, and then you just send it up.
Hey, Dad, how many YouTube videos got up-liked for you? You sad bastard.
Yeah. Thanks for working hard so I can eat and everything. Let me run upstairs.
Irony. All right. Anyway, guys, any final thoughts on your dad stories?
Those are good dad stories.
I will say my dad is an incredible storyteller, and I'm a storyteller. So I think I might have gotten some of that from him on how to, always be going somewhere with the story, how to keep the listener engaged because it's not boring kind of thing,
That's interesting. What you mean, like he would just tell stories at parties or whatever, or he would tell that to you? Like he knew the structure?
To me,
he
when
did?
He's telling them to me, I'm always thinking how like I'm never bored when he's telling me a story. Like if he gets in and he knows what story to tell, it'll be like, I'll be like, Dad, tell me about real life fist fights you've had in bars. And I'll go, oh yeah, okay, there's the time or he'll tell you like deer hunting stories. And there's always about like one of his drunk friends with a gun going off in camp. You know what I mean? Like it's always a rip roaring story and well told.
Right. Okay, so he didn't instruct you on story; you just knew from it.
No, he didn't give me the McKee.
Yeah.
Find how to write a script. No, it was just by watching him be a great entertaining story. Ripping through it. I kind of, I just respect that when people do that.
Yeah, I feel like my dad was the same way, and then his friends were those cheap, tawdry vaudeville comedians who would tell jokes, which I hated. I hated jokes. Where it was like 3 guys go into the woods. One of them does it.
How many feminists does it take to screw in a light bulb? Those guys.
Well, but they were maybe it was when I was a kid. There were those shaggy dog stories and kind of 70s things where like it was a long joke and then the punchline was lame and every guy in the room who was drunk would laugh. And I remember my dad never got into that. He was a little more real than that. So I understand what you're saying about look, just tell a real story. These jokes are awful. These cocktail Dean Martin jokes are just the worst.
The thing my dad did storytelling wise that kind of had a big effect on me was those nights in that van. I remember very vividly. Bedtime story time. It would be time for bedtime, but we're all living in a little van. It wouldn't be like he could like close us into a little room and say goodnight. Like we're all in a van. So he'd tell us a bedtime story, but we didn't have any books or anything around. So he'd just make up a bedtime story on the spot. And like we'd throw in ideas, but it blew my mind that you could just make a story up that would have us rolling laughing. And it was because he's just peppering in fart jokes and making him really like gross boy humor, but like I loved it. I loved the idea that he could just make a story up and have us rolling laughing, and that story didn't exist until now. And I wanted to draw the stories. Like I got all excited. I wanted to draw them and write them down, and like he basically wrote like a Weird Al parody of Smokey the Bear, just kind of joking around, smoking a bear, like a joke where you're smoking a bear like a cigarette, and. I thought that was so brilliant. I went out and wrote like full lyrics. But that was the kind of stuff that my dad, storytelling wise, had a huge impact on me. Was just being willing to try to be funny with something and not be afraid of where it ends up.
That's awesome. That is a great testament to his storytelling ability. Well done.
So that's more dad advice. Mulleters, if you're going to be a dad, it's good to have your storytelling on.
Tell stories, fart jokes.
Yep. My last tale, and then we'll close this out, is that when my kids were young, their favorite thing is I would come into their bed to tell them a story as a different guy, and I would be like a confused grandfather, and then I would tell them a completely, outrageous story, or I'd be like, Bridget would say, "Oh, I got remarried, and here's my second husband," and I would come in. And they loved it. And it was like, and all my stories were just warped and terrible. And they laughed and laughed and laughed. And I had dozens of characters that I would play. And they still to this day, they're like, "Well, I remember Confused Grandpa was good. Angry Grandpa was even more fun."
Man, now I want to hear these. Yeah. We're going to do an episode.
We'll have to do a whole episode in our favorite storytelling characters for the whole time.
Yeah. Oh, this has been good. I've liked this episode about dadhood. This has been fun. Guys, we will be back again with another important topic and another frivolous topic. But this is Audio Mullet. Guys, any last words?
Wear it free and wild, your mullet.
Yeah, let the mullet fly. Party in the back, party on the sides, party in the front, party on top, and party underneath. I think that's a St. Patrick quote.
I love it. We'll be back for another episode. So long.
Audio